Welcome, adventure seekers. We're uncommon voyagers, otherwise known as Mandy and Greg, Brisbane, Australia's almost empty nesters, about to turn our midlife crisis into an Italian escapade. Our mission? Spend 2025 getting ready to make the life-changing move to Italy. We'll be juggling home renovations, Italian house hunting, planning slow travel, prepping our kids to survive without us, and cramming our entire life into 2 suitcases. If you love big dreams with a sprinkling of chaos, we'd love for you to come along for the ride. Hit subscribe. It'll be bellissimo.
Hi guys, welcome back to Uncommon Voyagers. Sorry that I was missing last week. I'm here to tell you it's been a little bit of a crazy week or so. But first of all, before we go any further, I thought it would be exciting to share, because I've had some comments and some feedback about the audio quality, that I invested in some technology. So I have this cute little baby. So hopefully people will notice, I guess, a little bit of difference and it doesn't pick up too much extra noise. I don't know. I'm terrible at technology. So let's hope that this is good. So now that I've told you about my brand new piece of technology, I wanted to talk about, it's tough out there. So when we made these plans, my eldest daughter is always telling me how, she's 27, so, she always talks to me about how she'll never own a home and, how tough it is out there. And she's the only one out of all the kids that has kind of been out in the world and rented and shared with people. And I do listen to her and I understand, and I'm aware of the media, and, I understand that I'm in a very privileged position, I guess, because of my age, and that, we've had the opportunity to own a couple of homes and have some, like, an investment property. We've only ever owned one investment property at the same time as owning our home. But, we've had these opportunities, and I understand that it's less and less attainable. But by the same token, we've lived in this house now for 25 years, so it's something that we've heard about and we understand is a struggle. Our children have continued to stay at home with us, probably partly because of that, and partly because they're very comfortable, and why would you move out and make your life harder, I guess. We're also in Brisbane, which means that they've never had to move because of uni or school or anything, so there's that. But I will say my sister has rented, and she rents. She doesn't have a mortgage or own her own home, and she has struggled over the years finding somewhere to live. And, she has herself and her husband, and then they have 5 kids, ranging from 20 to 12, I think is my youngest. And they've always had difficulties finding a home, big enough for them, but also they noticed when COVID hit that it got really, really bad. So since COVID, not only has it been very, very competitive, it's also been really, really expensive. So right now they live in what I would call, excuse my language for anyone out there who hasn't heard me swear before, but they live in a shit box that shouldn't really house more than 3 people, and there's 7 of them there, and they're charging $820 a week for something that pre-COVID, and even if COVID hadn't happened, maybe, I don't know, but if that's what's, part of the reason that this has caused this, because of the competition. But in the normal world, where they live right now, should not be charging more than $500 a week, $550 max. Like, this is what I'm saying, not great. Anyway, they kept putting the rent up, and $820 a week is what they pay for this tiny little thing. Now, Jade's been out in the world sharing with friends on occasion, but, they've always kind of split it up. So, if there was 4 of them, they might pay, say, $150 or $200 each, and then split the bills. Well, I will say, again, in a very privileged position in that we've never had to kind of have that struggle. And I've learnt the hard way these last 2 weeks. So, as some of you will know, if you've watched the other videos, the plan is that we're doing a house up to sell it, and we just realised that it's really, really hard to do the work that we need to do when it's actually full of kids. So, we have 4 kids at home, And although Xander is in his final year of school and will remain with us, we decided that what we want to do is find a rental property for the girls to move into so that we can, so the three girls, the three older girls, so that we can actually renovate the house without trying to renovate around people, because it's just too hard and it's really, really slowing us down. So I don't know why. Like I say, I know people saying there's a problem. And I don't even know if it was that I just thought, well, maybe it's, how much you can pay. Maybe that's the problem. Even though my sister had told me, it's competitive regardless. Like, she's applied for so many properties and not got it. And, she works, her husband works. It's not about that they can't afford to pay the rent, although it is very, very expensive. I mean, that's more than some people's wage, some weeks, depending on where you work. So I was listening, but I guess because it hadn't really hit me directly, I didn't really understand. Not that I wasn't sympathetic, there's a difference. It's that I don't really think I understood what I was being told and what I was hearing. I just kind of thought maybe people are wanting to go into areas that are, everyone wants to live in and people aren't looking further out, or, whatever it was. I don't even know what I was thinking, to be honest, because again, it hadn't really hit me. Well, I have been to so many open houses the last couple of weeks, when we finally went, right, we need to move the girls out so that we can start renovating properly. And I've had to take time off work. Thankfully, my boss is amazing, and she's just like, look, go do what you have to do, and lets me make the time up. And I'm very lucky that it's flexible like that. So I was actually I thought, maybe I'll just take a week off, take some of my annual leave, but I thought, no, I don't want to waste it. I'll just go out to the open homes and see how we go. You go, even on a weekday, so many people are showing up. So, I remember back in the day, 25, 26, 27 years ago, 28 years ago, when we were renting, when Greg and I first got together and we would rent, you used to go to the real estate office and tell them you were interested in a house. They'd give you the key, you'd go in, and then you'd go back and put an application in. And it never even occurred to you that you wouldn't get that house. It was just like you applied and you would get it if you liked it. Now there has to be inspection times and you have to register and you have to do that. And I get that it's people protecting their assets potentially, or they just want to keep, whatever the reason is. Again, not something I've had to think about. So people are going to get bored with me saying, not something I had to think about. But quite honestly, I just didn't realise, even seeing it, I just didn't realise how competitive it is. Anyway, and I also don't want to sound obnoxious when I say the next thing, but by, normal standards, Greg and I make relatively good money. I would say that we sit somewhere in the middle. We can afford to pay rent. We decided that we're not going to pay more. We were like, we're not going to pay more than $650 a week, because I'm thinking my sister pays $820, but they've just been putting the rent up. I think that the landlord's been gouging them rather than what the reality of the situation is, what you can get. We also didn't want a new home because the girls are taking 2 of the dogs, and we just kind of thought, you know what, they haven't lived out of home before. They don't need anything fancy. They just need somewhere to live. So we want to do that as economically as possible, because obviously Jade would be paying her portion of the rent. Hayley's doing her patisserie course at the moment, so we would try and help with subsidising anything that she needs. And Stella's at uni, so we would pay her rent or help with groceries or whatever it may be. So, we need to stick within a budget. I don't know if it's then also because we're trying to go the lower end of paying the rent, and that's why it's also so competitive. But to get to the story properly, essentially to get to the gist of the matter, we're showing up, there's multiple people there, and we've put in multiple applications now. Now, I've actually spoken to the real estate agents when we've got there, and I've said, look, we've owned our house now, we've lived in our house, we haven't rented for 27 years, so we don't have a rental history. And I said, my daughters have lived at home and they don't have a rental history, and my other daughter has only moved out with friends, and I don't even know if she's actually been on a lease before, and she said she can't remember. She usually just moves in with someone and shares. So no one has a history. And I said, do you need personal references, or what do you actually need to get this over the line? And they were like, no, that's actually good that you've been in your own home. That's fine. You'll just need a couple of personal references and obviously pay slips to show that you can pay the rent. So technically, and I said, my husband and I won't be living there. This is for our 3 girls, but, we would go as guarantors for the rent. The rent would be paid. And she said, yep, that's fine. Everyone needs to go on the lease that is an adult. So I get a wage, Greg gets a wage, Jade gets a wage, Haley works part-time, and Stella works casually. So everyone on that lease is an adult. We're all on there. We've been rejected multiple times. And I was kind of joking, like with my mum. I was on the phone the other day and I just said, I don't think I've ever been rejected before. Like, I know that sounds obnoxious. Really, really. Like, I think I need to, I don't know. I know this sounds obnoxious as I say it, but yeah, I just didn't think it would be this hard to just find somewhere for my kids to live. So yeah, Greg and I are kind of rethinking things in terms of selling our house. So that brings us on to the next thing. So because for 2 weeks straight, I didn't even get to do a video last week. I was so busy going out to open houses, and Jade was going with me. We were divide and conquering, just trying to go to as many as possible. We weren't being fussy. We were like, look, that is not particularly a fantastic place. One place had put a toilet where the back door used to be, and there's no back door anymore. I mean, there was some crazy stuff, but we won't be fussy. The only criteria we really needed to be met was that it's in a safe area, and that it's close to public transport, or close-ish, because all the girls kind of work odd hours sometimes. So I was like, I don't want to have to worry that they're walking home in the dark. They all either live in the city, work in the city, or work close to the city, which means that driving in wouldn't be an option, even if they all had their licenses anyway. They could potentially, well, one of them, because Jade has the car that we gave her, but only one of them would have access to a train station if they had to drive, or drive to a bus station. So, proximity to public transport was also something that we're looking at. So, but we weren't fussy. Honestly, we were looking at we were looking at Queenslanders that you could see the gaps between the VJs in the wall. I mean, the houses were whistling. I mean, these were some old places. So then I thought, well, maybe we look higher. So maybe we go up to $850 a week. So see, then now you're just getting crazy. $850 a week. Who can afford that? Like, it's making me upset. Then we just had an election on the weekend, and all these people, I don't know if they think things are going to get better. I don't know what the answer is. I honestly don't. But I know that we've had to rethink what we're doing. And what that means is we've decided not to sell our house. And I think it's fear. Fear has stopped us from deciding to sell our house. Now, if we sold our house, we would be debt-free. We'd have money to buy a house in Italy on a budget. We'd be able to travel, and we'd be able to do those things. And we would have money to do that for us. But in good conscience, I can't throw my kids to the wolves. Like, we literally don't have a house right now for them to move into. And I actually also acknowledge that there are people out there that need a house because they have nowhere else to live, not because they're doing up their main house. Like, I hear myself going, geez, the reason we need a house for our kids is that we're doing up our house, and we need them to move so that we can do it up. But I don't think it should matter what your reason is. I mean, I think of the fires in LA at the moment, and there's gazillionaires out there that probably could go and bid on, say, we'll pay you 5 years rent right now today if you let us go into this rental property. And there are people out there that are baristas that aren't gazillionaires. I don't know why I use barista as an example, but you get what I'm saying. So, we've got gazillionaires and we have normal people. So regular normal people like us. And then I said to my daughter, do you think that they're like bidding on things? Are they saying we'll give you a year's rent, or are they bidding up on the rent? And she said to me, haven't looked it up, so I can't say for sure, but she's usually educated on all the things that, you can get worked up about. And she said that it's actually illegal to do that. You're not allowed to bid up. You're not allowed to bid on rent. Then I thought, maybe it's the dogs. Maybe we don't put the dogs on the, on the lease. But the problem is that if the dogs get left with us, they'll be sad, because Leo is completely attached to Jade, and Karma and Pandora are Haley's. So yeah, it's like, I thought, do we take the dogs off? Is it because we have animals? But in Australia, you can't actually penalise someone for having animals anymore. You used to have to, you still have to get approval, but you can't tell someone they can't have a pet anymore, which I think is amazing. But anyway, I digress. I do that sometimes. I just ramble on. Sorry, guys. The long and the short of it is, though, is that Greg and I talked about it, and we've actually decided that we're not selling our house. I'm too scared. I'm scared. And I'm not scared for me, because we're going to go to Italy regardless. Will it be on an even tighter budget and we'll be kind of, going by the seat of our pants? Absolutely. Will it be as secure for us? Absolutely not. But can I throw my kids to the wolves? No, I can't. I cannot. Wouldn't even be able to leave Australia knowing that at any point they could either have a lease ended, or, which can happen anytime, but usually when your lease ends, you just go find another place, right? That's not what's happening. And the reason I'll tell you I know that's not what's happening is because I felt like I walked away from a house inspection the other day and I actually wanted to cry, because there was an elderly lady, and look, I'm 50, so you could say I'm old, but there was, I would say she was maybe 75 plus. And she stood there and she said, they're selling the house that we've been in. So we've been renting for like 25 years and they're selling it. And they told us 3 months ago, and we've been trying to get a place since, and we only have 2 weeks to go. And I remember coming away from that and ringing my sister and just saying, like, I don't know if she was scamming me. I don't want to assume that she was or not. Just because she's elderly, she could still be trying to guilt me into not applying as well. But I was guilted into not applying. I thought, well, I'm one less person that she has to compete against if she's having so much trouble. And the thought of an elderly woman like having no house in 2 weeks is just crazy to me. I always like to think that I have my finger on the pulse to a degree of, life and what's happening to people. And like I said, I guess from an intellectual academic way, I understood that there's a housing crisis. But gosh, I can't do it to my kids. It's as simple as that. And Greg agrees. So what we've decided to do is, we actually have Greg's mum and dad used to live with us. They moved in with us when Grace got sick. That's another video if anyone wants to know about Gracie, but that's my daughter, and who passed away from leukemia. So when she got sick, Greg's mum and dad moved in, and we actually made part of our house into a little granny flat for them. So we have a granny flat attached to our house. Obviously, it's not huge, but what we're thinking is that when we move, when we go to Italy, the girls can move into the granny flat, and it'll be tiny, but we could get 3 bedrooms out of it. We've figured out how. So there are more videos. We've figured out how we can potentially get 3 bedrooms. They don't need huge space. It would be the same as them moving into a unit. So they're going to move into the granny flat. But again, they're putting the rent up on my sister again in her teeny tiny little shitbox that I will say is probably about the same size as the granny flat that the girls are going to move into. And we spoke to my sister, and her lease is up at the end of July, and she has taken us up on the offer to move into what we call the big house, which isn't a mansion, guys. You've seen it in some of the videos. We call it the big house because it's bigger than the granny flat. And that's what we've decided to do. So we're going to rent out the big house to my sister and her family, and we are going to move the girls into the granny flat. If they want to. Now, they're also welcome to go out into the world and rent with their friends, or try and find somewhere, or look for a share house. We've talked about that as well as an option, so it's not like we are not thinking about all of our other options. The only problem with that is that when you go into a share house situation, either A, someone already has an animal, so you can't add to the animal count, so dogs or cats or whatever they may have, or B, they don't want animals, if you're the one coming into a share situation. Or they just won't accept them. They're like, no, we don't want animals. So that's actually really difficult as well, because I said to Jade, there's no criteria. You don't have to, hitch your wagon altogether. You can all go your own separate ways if you want to, and go and share. And what they decided was that, you know, they can rip each other to shreds and hate each other one minute and love each other the next and go out for dinner. At least they're known quantities, whereas when you move in and do share house situations, sometimes they don't end very well, or whatever it may be. So, yeah, we're kind of back to the drawing board, I think. But like, we're still going to try and apply for a couple more places for now, because even if we do get a place in the next, you know, in the next week or so, they'll still move out, and that will still allow us to do a real quick tidy up and fix all the things we wanted to fix anyway before my sister and her family moves in. So yeah, that's excuse me, that's where we're up to, guys. So yeah, I don't even know how. I just feel for people right now. I felt for them anyway. I knew it was a struggle out there. I knew it because of my sister. I knew it was a struggle. And she would tell me how many open houses she went to and how many applications she put in. But, you know, I wasn't actually going there myself. And to stand there next to an elderly lady and know that she'll have nowhere to live in 2 weeks is crazy. It's just crazy. I have a friend that went and bought tents for, you know, for people that are living rough. And yeah, I just don't even know what to say. It's just, you know, we have a house and we are so lucky that we have options, but there are people out there without options, and it scared me, and I don't want to be left with no options, you know, because if Greg and I go away, and even if we buy a house in Italy, even when we buy a house in Italy and we go and travel and all that stuff, you know, there's nothing to say that me or Greg or both of us don't become terribly homesick and say, look, there's no place like home, because we love Australia, you know, and want to come back, or there may be illness, or there may be a reason to come back. I may get grandchildren. I mean, there may be multiple reasons why we want to come back. And the assumption that we can just come back and rent somewhere is not something I feel secure in anymore. Like, I just don't want to take the chance. So there's multiple reasons why we've made the decision not to sell. So we're going to have to rejig things and think about, and I'll talk about it as we figure it out, in terms of money and how that will work now, and, you know, and affording the plans that we have, because that's not changing. We're still going. Everything's still happening. It's just going to happen differently. So yeah. That's where we're at, guys. I just thought I'd update, and I know I've rambled on about the housing crisis and all that sort of stuff, but I believe it's worth a ramble. I just can't believe what it's like out there. Never used to be like this, and you know, it's sad for people who actually desperately need somewhere to live, not just people like me who want to get a house for their kids so they can renovate their primary residence. That just sounds obnoxious as I say it. So I'm very well aware of what it sounds like, but we all have our struggles, and it's not a competition. But I just want to say that's why our plans have changed. And yeah, we're not going to sell the house anymore. We're going to rent it out to family and have the girls live in the granny flat if that's what they'd like to do. So it's still all about the renovating and getting ready. It's just going to change instead of selling. So thanks for listening, guys. Oh, also, it's amazing. We've been getting some new subscribers on board, which is fantastic. I would love if you could like, thumbs up and subscribe. I think it just pushes our videos out there a little bit more. And now that we're not selling the house, I never ever went into this thinking about, you know, people call it monetization or whatever it is, or getting paid to be on YouTube. But that might be something we have to aim towards now, because we're not going to have the money from the sale of our house. So yeah, I think if you want to support, and you know, it's free, you only have to listen to me, which is you're only giving up your time. Yeah, that would be amazing if you could like, subscribe, share. I never look at statistics, I'm the worst, but I looked in the back end of YouTube, and it said that only 2% of the people who come back and view the videos are, not that we've got that many viewers, let's face it, but only 2% are subscribed. So if you could subscribe and like and share, that would be amazing, because we may need to aim towards having a job on the road or something like that. So anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. Thank you so much. We've just ripped out our ensuite. We'll have a video of that coming up soon. Greg's already done heaps in there. So thanks for watching, and appreciate any support, and love the comments. And I hope you're proud of me for actually getting some technology, and I hope that the sound quality is smooth. Thanks guys, bye.